So as that is preparing, I will bring back the link into this space. Okay. And here we go. Okay, so I seem to have a bit of an echo. Just a moment. So I'd just like to say a very big welcome to this conversation on and just as I sort out this echo,
what's that in the chat?
that is the link to the Women at Web YouTube link.
Yeah, I was talking to Christine. She can't make it. She just called me. She's actually shooting an interview right now with Judith Hart that will be aired on Spark TV on Sunday, so that's great.
Okay, so Lindsay will need you to mute for a bit. Great. So sorry, I have a really nasty echo coming through. I don't know if it's affecting you. Okay, so once again, welcome to the Women at Web conversation around the Safe Spaces East Africa campaign that has been running since Monday and continues to run into Sunday. Today being Friday, we thought that it would be great to wind up the conversation with a bit of reflection on what has been happening. My name is Juliet Namfuka. I work with a collaboration on international ICT policy for East and Southern Africa. And we are part of a network of organizations working towards the advancement of digital rights for women and digital spaces for women in the countries of Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda. So in this session, we're having a roundup of rather conversation with some of the actors involved in this network. They'll introduce themselves, but also give a bit of insight into the work that they've been doing around this whole project that is led by DW Academy based out in Germany. I'll give a bit of background on what we as FES has been doing since 2018/17 when this project began in Kenya in a place called Machakos. So since inception as a project, we have pursued a range of activities, including research through to which fed into digital security workshops, but which also fed into the documentation and development of policy paper, which captured the insights that emerged from some of these conversations. And this included the need for such activities, the need for such projects, not only in the continent, but in spaces beyond Africa and East Africa as well. We saw similar challenges being faced by women, be they based in the city, in rural areas, in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria. We're seeing a trend of violence against women online taking shape or taking hold and shaping the way in which women engage online. This is seeing a limitation to the extent of freedom of expression that women have online. It's expecting the extent to which women can engage in democratic governance processes as well, talking about elections, talking about electoral processes, talking about politics, through to just simply having an opinion on anything, which is why such campaigns are fundamental to supporting the need for the rights of women in spaces such as we see in Uganda, but in other countries as well. I will hand over to Lindsay Kukunda, also based in Uganda, who can tell us a bit about herself and the work that she's doing.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Kukunda. I am the Managing Director of
Lindsay, you need to unmute.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't talk. It's that. Okay, so let me try something else. Okay, what about now?
Okay, perhaps as Lindsay and her dog settle, let us move on to Natasha, based out in Rwanda. Natasha, can you tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you're doing? Lindsay, we'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. As she said, my name is Natasha Umutoni, and I'm based in Rwanda. And basically what we have been doing in Rwanda is a series of activities that include digital literacy and digital citizenship training, where we train on the basics of being online on different online platforms that women can use, but also showing how to be a responsible digital citizen, meaning how to identify online violence and how to be active bystanders, and report these violences. We have also held advocacy meetings with different stakeholders that include the government, the police, the Rwanda Investigation Bureau, just to know what are the laws that protect women online, what is being done, and if it's active or until or do they have to wait for someone to report so that they can enforce the laws. We have also held advocacy meetings with local NGOs so that we can talk about their work, because most of them organize online, and how they are impacted by the violence, or if they find any safety in the communities that they have. This year we're also doing a research to understand what drives the digital gender divide in Rwanda, which will include the digital literacy rate in Rwanda, and also the violence that women see, the connectivity that we have in Rwanda. And yeah, it is. So in a nutshell, that's what we are doing in Rwanda.
Thanks for sharing that. Lindsay, can we come back to you?
Yes, we can come back. I have locked it away. Hi, my name is Lindsay Kukunda, and I run the organization Not Your Body. It's a feminist organization. So what we do is we have discussions around challenges that affect women's bodies, essentially, because when you affect a woman's body, you affect her life. And our digital security program is part of the work that we do. So under the Women at Web initiative, we have had focus group discussions with a variety of people. We have held numerous digital literacy trainings also with a diverse group of people. What has stood out for me with the women, with the women is lack of hardware. There is a serious lack of hardware around young women today, and it affects them, especially for university students. It affects their studies. And I noticed that the university boys have laptops, and this is all of the difference when it comes to getting reading material, you know, having a laptop and not having a laptop. So girls mostly use mobile phones, and there's little they can do with them except entertainment and being on social media. And so their lives are not really very happy because being on social media is challenging for them. So that's what has stood out for me. It's important for us to have initiatives and conversations around these different dynamics that face women online, because it affects women psychologically, it affects them socially. For example, if you are Stella Nyanzi, who we now know is running for Woman MP in Kampala, in one of the workshops I attended held by CPESA, she said that she could only do the work that she was doing because family members are no longer, around. So family can affect how you behave online. So it also affects us socially. It affects women economically as well. You can lose your job over someone making nude pictures of you. You can get arrested. You can be. I recently had a training also for women at web, where one girl told me that her boss told her that if she wanted the job, she had to close her Twitter account. So right there and then she is losing her identity on Twitter, because if she has a job for 6 years and then she's applying for a job, people now look at your online handles and there is nothing to show what you're about, what your principles stand for. It's important for women to have a right to have their handles, Twitter, Facebook. A job should not tell you don't exist because you're going to work for us. There are a lot of rules for women when it comes to how they behave on social media in the workplace. A lot of rules. So this is something that we also noticed here at Not Your Body. When I think of the future of Africa's women online, I see a robust economic potential for economic growth, especially, and also for being able to speak their minds and making a huge difference by having, like a domino effect, having more and more women coming out. In the beginning in Uganda, for example, if a woman used the online space to say she had been violated, she would be attacked. And the man that she mentioned would just bring all his friends. But in the space of 2 years, it has changed. Now, if a woman says she has been violated, we are seeing a balance of people believing her, people supporting. We are seeing more of the men being accused pulling down their Twitter handles or appearing for a few weeks. That's what I mean by the domino effect. One person starts, takes the heat, and the heat reduces, and then the opportunities rise up. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Lindsay. You covered quite a bit in your response. But I think it gives a nice leeway into what is happening with the Kenyan team and the work that they're doing around creating a whole lot more awareness, especially some of them working with journalists and with people involved in making commentary on political commentary rather. So on that note, I'd like to invite Miriam to say a bit of what they've been working on out in Kenya, and perhaps Mwara may be interested in that conversation as well.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you so much for creating this space that we can talk about, just creating safe spaces for women. And a lot of the work that we've done in Kenya, together with partners Amwick and Kiktanet and us, CSA Place, we've been able to reach out to different diverse groups of women. Just when we had, from 2018, when we had a literacy workshop, a digital literacy workshop, the findings from that workshop informed the activities that we have now, in the sense that we've been able to reach out to women journalists, young leaders, young women leaders, students, just getting their perspective on what safe spaces looks like to them, and also giving them training on digital literacy, security, and safety, and how they can be able to freely express themselves. Just from the research, we realized that internet access is not the same for every woman. So you could find in the urban area, we have women who are able to access the space easily, but then in the rural areas, we have issues of access, affordability. And so with the initiative, we've been able to accomplish quite a bit, and it opens up the space such that we can have these conversations and just see how we can collaborate. One of the key things that we found is that women experience harassment online. And so from the research that AMIC did, they found that 7 in 10 women, at least women journalists, experience harassment online. And so it's something that affects their participation. And so at Siasa Place, we engage a lot with youth on matters of politics and governance. And we find that there are more men participating in dialogue as opposed to women in political discourse. So one of the key things that we try to do is talk about this so that we can have more women participating and talking about these issues online. I'll have Lourdes from Amwick talk a little bit more, if she's there.
Lourdes, your sound isn't coming through.
I think in summary, that's pretty much what we're up to in Team Kenya. Over
Great.
to you.
Thanks for giving that insight, Miriam. And then we also have Brian Bayuhanga from Uganda. Brian is a practical tech, like Lindsay, techie on digital security. And yes, Brian, perhaps you can give us a bit more insight on what you've been doing on your side.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity again. I'm Brian Bayuhanga from Defenders Protection Initiative. I'm the Digital Security Executive at DPI, and we basically would like to say we like to build the capacity of activists, human rights defenders, and journalists by developing tailored and conceptualized solutions to benefit, to build their security. So we began the Women at the Web project with focus group discussions to be able to understand the posture of, to get an insight of why women are not participating as much as the other genders online. And what we found out was really not the best. And what we tried to do is we thought that we would be able to improve this participation by giving women the skills and tools to be able to make sure that they protect their privacy online. So most of the work that we've been doing has been based on building capacity through advocacy, through digital security trainings, digital literacy trainings. We also did a research to document the incidences, women that have been experiencing violence online, and we thought that that would help us to develop a handbook or a portal, and a handbook and a portal that we could use to give to women to be able to use these online spaces without feeling threatened or without feeling threatened or experiencing violence as it has been before. So along the years, we've done a couple of digital security trainings. We have developed Women at Work portal Uganda, where you can be able to access some of the data that we have collected. And we are also developing a handbook that will be used, that will be used to help women use the online spaces more securely. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Yes, so a lot of the work has entailed research, the practical aspect of navigating online. So there's been a lot of digital security workshops that's been done. There's for the different stakeholders. I know Tanzania also did quite a bit of work on teaching basic digital literacy schools. How do you build and maintain a LinkedIn profile, for example? How do you your online presence? So quite a bit has been happening as part of the project. Thank you for those joining in from elsewhere. Louis from Rwanda, Tirist, I think from Ethiopia, thanks for joining in. It's a pleasure to have you in this space. But moving on, a lot of this work has been supported by DW Academy. And on that note, I'd like to invite Johanna to give us a bit more insight on why there is a need to support work around the experiences of women online, why there's a need to advocate for safer spaces for women online, especially considering that fewer women are online than men. I think globally, the difference is about, I had the figure here, we have 58% men, more men on, well, there's a disparity of 58% of men versus 42% of women being online. So how do we navigate that space, considering that there are fewer women online, yet they're receiving the brunt of online harassments and the various other forms of cyber violence in digital spaces. So Johanna, I would like to welcome you and give us a bit of your thoughts on why support for such work is important.
Yes, thank you so much, Juliette, for this initiative to bring us all together to actually also have a bit of a space to discuss what has happened already in the context of Women at Web. And also having in mind that this will hopefully continue for the next years. I think from the DW Academy, as we are the Center for International Media Development, Journalism Training and Knowledge Transfer of the Deutsche Welle, I think one of our main aim is to strengthen the human rights of freedom of expression and unhindered access to information. And I think that the idea that we are actually having is that women have the capacity and the possibility also to access the internet freely and securely without being afraid of being bullied and actually being confronted with different form of online violence. I think this is one of our core ideas, and this is why we actually also consider it as especially very important to support the Women at Web network in the region. Especially what we have observed, and was already also mentioned here, was that especially women who are quite visible in the online space, like, for example, journalists, politicians, human rights activists, especially those women are in a great danger to be the victim of online violence. And then this is also one of our core group that we want to support, and this is why we are actually in. And I must confess that I'm super excited and very much thrilled in regard to the development of this whole network. Because at the beginning, I think it was quite of also a bit of a work for all of us actually to to define ourselves or define yourself as actually also as a network, and also actually coming together from all different countries, having all these different context ideas in mind, how to bring it together. And I think that this advocacy campaign on Safe Spaces East Africa is somehow something where all these efforts and all this comes together. And I really hope that now we are actually we are building up on what we have already achieved. Also in regard to trainings, also in regard to the development of a curriculum, of all your efforts that you already did in your countries, but that we actually really strengthen the regional idea, and that this is actually, I think, very much helpful to develop this idea much further and create much more impact. And I really want to thank all of you for your amazing effort. If I just listen to all what you have already done and what we are also planning to do, I'm absolutely thrilled. So I would say let's continue with the communication, maybe also get a bit more insights from what you have done, how you see the whole network, and what you're maybe also planning for the future. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Joanna. It is indeed a pleasure to work with you and the amazing community that makes Women at Web East Africa. It has been a particularly amazing week of activity as part of the campaign. We have seen radio interviews, TV engagements, online campaigns, meetings, and so much more going on. And I think in that light, I'd just like to find out from the community what has stood out for you, what has stood out. Let's start with Team Rwanda. Natasha, since the campaign started running to showcase the work of Women at Web, safe spaces in East Africa, what is a standout for you that you'd like to share in this space?
I think the biggest thing that stood out for us is people realizing that this violence is real. Because at first, when we started talking about it, people were like, but Rwandans are not violated online. What do you mean? So when we started breaking down what the violence means, what the harassment, the sharing of non-consensual images and information, and that's when people started realizing how bad it was. And they started sharing their experiences and examples. When we went on radio, people were amazed at how much they see or how much they have witnessed and what has happened to them, but they never took it serious or taken action. But also what we realized is that when we're talking about safe spaces, everyone, already there's an image the society has of a woman and how she's supposed to conduct herself. And when that also is reflected online. So when you have people, when you start talking about like nudes being leaked or women wearing whatever they want or even posting their bodies online, it becomes a tricky path to take, because those are the people that are expected to be violated, if I can put it that way. Like sex workers have no boundaries, for example, online because of their job. Yeah, if they are harassed, you brought it on yourself. Or if you're harassed because you posted a nude or because you posted yourself dancing, people have every right to violate you. So that's also one of the things that stood out, is that if you are not quote unquote, if you do not fit the image the society wants you to, there is a lot of the violence is justified. And when we are also looking at some of the cyber laws we found out that some of them can actually be harmful or can be used to punish women instead of actually protecting them. So yeah, there's a lot of conversation that is going around. What I found that everyone agrees on is that this violence is there, and people are requesting for more conversations and also to cut across different fields. And now, because you also have different women, especially in the rural areas, who cannot access the internet now, the issue is asking what can be done to them, because they also they also encounter violence, like where they're, even though it's not necessarily online, it's through digital, like where their money is stolen, or where their husbands have rights over their phones and their money, on mobile money, like they cannot access certain platforms because, you know, domestic violence, I guess. So yeah, those are some of the things we have noticed, but we have noticed a huge interest in having these conversations and in defining what safe spaces online mean for women.
Great, thanks. It is indeed a timely conversation, and what you are saying about Rwanda echoes very much what we have seen in Uganda, where some users are deemed as better than others in terms of their bodies, who has agency and who doesn't. And often women have less agency over their bodies than their male counterparts do. And to some extent, we've also seen the law being used in this to support this narrative. We saw the Anti-Pornography Act of 2014 being used against victims of non-consensual images being shared online, as opposed to it being used against the perpetrators of the sharing of those images. And that sent a narrative of the female form is something that can be readily ridiculed, can be punished. You know, it's a form that really almost has no space in the online arena unless it's being toyed with, unless it's being ridiculed, unless it's being exploited, but not when it's being owned by its actual owner. So that's an interesting similarity there. Let's hop on to Kenya. Miriam, do you see similarities there as well? Or rather, what would be your highlights so far? And what are the similarities you've picked up on, both good and bad?
Thank you, Juliet. So we're also experiencing similar, we're also finding the similar situation here. But for me, in terms of women's participation, especially when it comes to women who are vying for leadership positions, every day we do an online troll search. So we try and see why people are trending every day. And most of the time, you'll find it's either it's women trending online for reasons that don't even make sense. But more specifically, we find that there's a lot of harassment towards women, in the sense that now they end up either becoming less active on social media. But I'll have Moira share a little bit more, because the Kictanet had conducted a policy brief, and I'd like them to share a little bit more on it.
Thank you, Miriam. And thank you, everyone, for including us in this conversation. I'd like to say a congratulations to all the countries for the work that they're doing in the regional campaign. It's truly amazing and remarkable to see the engagement level on this vital conversation. Yes, similar to, and just to add on to what Miriam is saying, it's a timely conversation. I don't think it's something that needs to end anytime soon, creating awareness around online gender-based violence against women, because we've seen a rise of cyberbullying, especially in the COVID pandemic season, in this pandemic era. And our policy brief on creating safer spaces on online spaces by Kictanet really saw the rise of online gender-based violence on specific women, including women who are seen to take up positions that are more male-dominated, like the political space, just like Miriam has mentioned, as well as women content creators who really became who really grew, especially now in the pandemic era, as well as female journalists. And you find that there's a difference, or there's a contrast in how these women in these spaces are treated versus male counterparts. For example, one of our case studies in the policy brief was one of the first cases of the COVID-19 being this lady called Brenda, and who came out with her friend or another male who was also found to be one of the few cases that are of COVID-19 in Kenya. And we found that Brenda, in the way that she was treated online, was very different to how the male was treated. In regards to some of the information that came out from Brenda, including nudes that leaked on Twitter, some private conversations she had with people on WhatsApp groups. And so you can see really the difference in how she was treated versus how Brian was the other person who was one of the few cases of COVID-19 in Kenya. You can see the contrast, as well as a female journalist who came to her defense, Yvonne Okwara, and how then she also faced fire on Twitter, which is one of like the most toxic places in Kenya, just because she defended how the unfairness she was treated on. But yeah, so there's need for a lot of work to be done in creating safer spaces online for women, as well as just policy reform. Existing laws that are in Kenya that need to be revised to accommodate online gender-based violence in its definition and how it affects women and other marginalized communities. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Moira. Yes, COVID did indeed bring a new level of issues for the digital rights of women. And that is something that may have almost gone unnoticed, but it's good that it was picked up and work has been done to address it. Of course, one of the issues has been the absence of women in some of the online spaces at a time when economic first avenues have been much more limited than they were before. And in a country like Uganda, where we have internet that is not as cheaply available as it is in other countries, in addition to having a social media tax that limits basic access to social media, which also happens to serve as the primary platform to access the internet, that is an issue around affordability and digital inclusion that we have also noted and are working towards addressing, even at a policy level. How do we promote more affordability, more digital inclusion for more people across the different levels of society? I'd just like to take this moment to see if we have any questions or reactions from others in the meeting. We have Teres Bayene from Ethiopia. I think we have, anyway, just wanted to find out, do we have any reactions or can we continue? I'll shortly do a countdown and it's starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that means we've got to go ahead to continue the conversation. So the next item that we'd just like to quickly explore is the importance of such initiatives through the lens of policy. What does an initiative like Safe Spaces Online mean for the greater community, for traditional women's rights activists, for people working on data privacy, for people working on digital security? From our perspective, we see the value of such a campaign, firstly in creating awareness, as Natasha had pointed out earlier. And that is a value that really has no price that can be placed to it. Sometimes it is just one tweet or one Facebook post that is needed to create a mind shift. And that is what this campaign is really working hard to do, with all the videos, all the Facebook posts and messages, and some work on Instagram as well, to create a mind shift, to create an affinity for the plight that many women are facing in the digital space. We often see women with very popular or rather big presences online being attacked, but this is an issue affecting your ordinary woman on the street who happens to have a social media account with a small following, but will feel the brunt of trolling, of cyber harassment, of her images being shared without her permission. So we see the value in having these conversations and having these campaigns down to most basic, if we could call it that, most basic level. But I'd just like to find out from the others. Lindsay, can you give us your thoughts or reactions on the value of such a campaign? You're also welcome to mention others that you may be aware of. Yeah, Lindsay, we seem to be having a poor connection with you.
From my side, I would say that it's very at policy level.
Okay, you seem better now. Please continue. Okay, we're struggling to hear Lindsay.
I would say it's very important. We can see, for example, what happened when a woman member came in now.
Okay, now we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I would like to speak about the example of a woman member of parliament who filed a police report against a man who was harassing her, a 21-year-old man. He wasn't just harassing, it was pretty much cyber stalking. And there was evidence, you know, there were texts, he was calling her incessantly. He was saying, I own you, I'm never going to leave you alone. And the law says bring evidence. And there was enough evidence, honestly, to lock the man up on the spot. But he had so much support from the public, and it was shocking how the policy, I would say the policy people and members of parliament and anyone with who is in charge of ensuring our safety did not respond to what was happening to this woman. And the message that women online got is, if a whole member of parliament cannot get a man to stop stalking her, can file a report, and then the man gets a lot of men pulled together money for his legal defense, he gets that much support, and then he walks. The message that all of us got was, don't bother going forward. So if I would say the justice system had done what it was supposed to do when it came to this case, it would have been a good precedent. Instead, the precedent that it set was, when a man stalks you or harasses you, your life is not in danger, your welfare is not in danger. He's just telling you he likes you, and you have no right to refuse to be liked, basically. I would also like to say that on a policy level, it would be very important if the powers that be look out for what women are saying online and respond to it. For example, when someone posted a video of a man beating up his grandmother in northern Uganda, the police arrested that man almost overnight. I don't even think he slept. He probably went to the bar, came out, and found the police waiting for him. But when women write about these sort of things online, they accuse high-profile men online who are not big. They are not too big politically for you to touch. You know, they are not members of parliament. They are not soldiers. In Uganda, let's admit it, we do have that thing. You can touch some people, you can't touch some. But when a woman here posts online about a high-profile man doing something to her, there is no reaction at all. Recently, when one woman did that, a lot of people tagged the police, and they tagged a certain minister who responded by saying that because these were different women who were accusing this man were not filing official reports, then there was nothing that they could do about it. So he's basically saying, yeah, we see the man, but we shall arrest a man caught on video beating up an old woman, but we shall not even bother to call up a dude who is being accused by more than one woman online of a crime as serious as rape. So that is just two examples of why I would say it's very important on a policy level for policies to navigate, to look, to examine online spaces and to actively make them safe for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. You point out a very key issue, and that with one of the examples that you've given of the fellow Brian Isiko, who kept harassing the member of parliament, and the amount of support that he received online. Some of the research that we did revealed that there's a need to build a bigger community of women, or rather of actors, who are readily available to jump to the support or to the defense of women who have fallen victim to the various forms of cyber harassment. And that is something that this campaign, that this project is also doing. It is creating an affinity for the challenges that women are facing. It is creating a community of actors to support the narrative, or to shape the narrative against the perpetrators of violence against women online. So thanks for bringing up that issue. I just wanted to find out, Natasha, Brian, would you like to add anything further on what such campaigns, such as the Safe Spaces online, mean for the presence of women in the online arena?
Yes, I'd like to say it's very important, just like to add on what Lindsay has said, but it's also good to, because most of the people experience this and they think they're alone or it's in a vacuum, but having these awareness campaigns puts words into the feelings of people, makes it real, so that when you experience violence, you don't think it's because of you or because of how you are. And also it shows the loopholes in the legislations we have, and it kind of makes uncomfortable people so that they can look into in the policies that we have, and possibly there is change, because most of the time the laws that we have are designed by people who with different morality, different traditions and religious views, and you find they are very harmful to a certain group of people. So having these campaigns to create awareness is very, very useful, especially in these times where everything is going digital. Like COVID forced us to go digital and have more people participate, but we also saw a huge gap in people who did not have accessibility. Yes, I think it's very important, and I think it's also important to point out that even these platforms themselves are not safe. And so if we voice the issues, the glitches that are there, let's say for Twitter, I think Amnesty did a report on that, how Twitter is very toxic, especially for women, and not just in Africa, but across the globe. We have Facebook as well, and Instagram, even though they have policies, but they're not catered directly to protect some regions or some groups of people. So even these campaigns, if we point out the gaps that are there, we're hoping for a change. I think these conversations can push a change in these platforms to hold them accountable and try to change their policies.
Thanks, Natasha. I think just adding on to that, one of the things we've also noticed, and this is a common issue across the continent and perhaps the world, is the representation of women by the media. It is a continuation of the objectification of women. And I saw some very interesting tweets coming from all of the partners who have hinted at this, the continued objectification of women. Women are just a thing to look at and to play around with, but not a thing to be heard. And so even when you harass a woman, it's just play. It is not an actual issue, and therefore she cannot, and technically should not stand up for it. That is one of the narratives and undertones that this work is pushing back against. It has also been present in what Lindsay spoke about. It was present in what Moira and Miriam spoke about the politicians in Kenya as well, and journalists. So this objectification, be it through imagery, be it through the mocking of women, or the dissemination of their personal information, where women's numbers are distributed like sweets across social media networks with the sole purpose of silencing her, of reducing her being or her presence in a particular space, or pushing her out of holding a particular position. These are all ways in which cyber violence is playing itself out, and something that we need to be very aware of. Also, we need to be aware of the most subtle ways in which gender-based violence plays it online, and of course offline plays itself out. And just going back to my initial point, and that is through how the media portrays women and issues relating to the circumstances that many women find themselves in online spaces. I'll just give the example of how the media translated the anti-pornography law into the miniskirt law. This is a law that technically could be used to good, but was misconstrued and thus interpreted by the public at large. And this saw some women being stripped, some being beaten up, for simply dressing up in what they wanted to wear. But as a result of this law, and of course the reinforcement of the law by individuals such as the Minister of Ethics, who only happens to show up during issues of miniskirts and the policing of women's bodies, we saw a narrative being pushed that it's okay to police women's bodies offline. It's okay to police them online. And in policing them, it's okay to reduce them. So these are some of the issues that we've been seeing. So one of the activities we did in Uganda was to hold a media masterclass. How do you report on women and digital rights generally as a journalist? What language do you use? How do you position the perpetrator of the crime against the victim of the crime? How do you use existing laws and policies to support the story that you're writing? And we're looking forward to a series of stories that are going to come out of that masterclass. But it is something that we need to be very aware of, and that is the interpretation of the laws and policies by the media, but also the consumption of that interpretation by the wider audience, because that is where we often see bigger problems emerging. Lindsay, did you have any reaction to that?
Sorry, could you phrase that to me as a question? Like a full question?
So you joined in as one of the trainers at the media masterclass on the representation of women. I just wanted to find out your thoughts on that whole experience. What stood out for you?
What stood out for me was the lack of what's the word, agency that journalists have. Like, you want to report something and then your editor is going to say, no, we're not interested in this particular conversation. And that's something that I've experienced as a journalist. especially in Uganda. Like if I pitch stories that are, positive or written the way that they should be written about women, media houses are not interested in them. So it's only international media houses that take them. That's one of the things that stood out for me. What also stood out for me was how difficult it is for women to remain in the work of journalism because of contractual issues and also income issues. So how much they are paid affects their desire to continue working. So you'll have the really good female journalists just stop being journalists and they become independent, data analysts. They decide to do their own thing. So money is one of the reasons why we don't have the women that we need writing their stories. So, but if you make a story exploitative, if you make a story abusive, if you have a bad headline, then that's going to sell. So there's a lack of agency, which is not abnormal, but it is much in Uganda. A complete and absolute lack of agency. That's one of the things that stood out for me.
Thank you, Lindsay. I think you're saying it's too much in Uganda. I think this is a problem across the region and perhaps the continent as well. Miriam Natasha Mwara, would you like to support me or perhaps disagree with me in that respect about the representation of women by the media, but also about the dynamics that women face in online spaces? Perhaps that is something that the media is not even covering or does not see as an issue. Perhaps such a campaign is shedding light to the media that, wait a minute, there are stories here that must. What would your reactions be to the representation of women by the media?
You're totally right. I mean, total agreement. And I think it's an issue within the region. Last year, we had a training with women in media, just because the media is one of the perpetrators of online violence. So like you say, the way they report on women, the objectification, but also the way they report on gender-based violence. I'll give you an example. We had, I think it's last year, we had 3 media houses posting pictures of women, and just even the headlines itself would be very problematic. We had one that posted a woman in a miniskirt and asked, "Do you think this woman deserves to be raped?" Well, I'm paraphrasing, it's not word for word, but the question was, women are raped because of how they dress. Do you agree or do you not agree? What that invited is a lot of rape apologists under those comments, and the media house didn't even take responsibility to say we were doing a poll, because we're going to have a discussion on radio and then come back and say what the discussion was about. It just left people hanging. And what that invites is a lot of trauma for rape survivors, is a lot of freedom of expression, or even, I wouldn't call it freedom of expression per se, but even freedom of agreeing, let's say, that women should be raped because of how they dress. And the training, we wanted to show them what do you think? And of course, you have some people who think, yeah, if you're naked, of course, if they rape you, it's your fault. And then you have others who would say that it's not right. So it's very, very, very prevalent here. And I think it's across the region. And I think the fact that also media is a very male-dominated industry plays a big role. Like Lindsay said, we also have cases where there's low income, women are not decision makers. So even the ones who are in journalism, they either create their own magazines to try and see how they can make money by themselves, or they fall out or do other things. So there's a lot at play. And yet in school, we have a lot of women journalists, but they're not sustained in the field. So it's very, very common here as well.
Thank you, Natasha. Moira, Miriam, would you like to share your reactions?
I absolutely agree. Apologies, I can't switch on my camera. I'm using my laptop, and the camera got messed up. Yes, I think the portrayal of women by media, be it traditional media or digital, is rooted in just how women are viewed in general in our societies, and how we've been socialized to see women as, yes, they belong in the kitchen. If women are complaining, they're deemed to be seen as toxic feminist. They're just ranting the issues of gender wars. If a woman speaks up on an issue of inequality, so there's been years of conditioning by the media in how women are seen as, which plays a huge role in the stereotypes and the biases that shape how the societies view women in general. And you see that those reflections of those stereotypes come online and are, convenienced by being anonymized, and the fact that you can say anything you want to say about women in online spaces and not be tracked down or, hold accountable. So I think the portrayal of women by media plays a role in how society views women, and vice versa, in that media has also been shaped by existing systemic biases and inequalities of women.
Thank you for that, Moira. And it's exactly why we need to have these conversations or interactions to challenge those narratives that are so deeply entrenched in the societies we live in. They're entrenched by religion, by education, by family, social mores. These are constructs which are very difficult to break because they're so deeply rooted. But nonetheless, it is not impossible. But we should work at limiting the extent to which they find their way into online spaces and cement themselves there too. Johanna, just jumping back to you, DW does quite a bit of media literacy, media training. We just wanted to find out on narratives around gender. Sorry for putting you on the spot like this, but media representation of women and the experiences of women are sometimes very, there's a relationship there. I just wanted to find out if this is an area that DW works in as part of the trainings that it does.
Yeah, thanks, Juliette. I think that's a very, very interesting question. Because also from my perception so far, really the focus on women, it's somehow, it's there, but it's not really focused on their needs. It's more like to say, okay, let's have the same amount of women and men in the trainings. But also from my impression, the thing is to say that women are actually confronted with other challenges. So they would maybe need a bit of an extra training and also really think through, for example, also to say, how can women actually really have a career in the media sector, as you already mentioned, that this is something they need to be supported by. Luckily, from my perspective, with the Women at Web project, having really the focus and also seeing the success and also the need that it's actually also articulated by you, I think it's somehow changing. The perspective is somehow changing. And I actually really like the topic, not just to say maybe train women in regard because they have special challenges, but also really train men and women in regard to how to present women in the media. And that there needs to be more reflection on the topic. So I think from my perspective, it's not yet, we have not yet really covered that topic well enough. I think it definitely needs to be, more advocated for. And I think what we are doing now also with this advocacy campaign, I think this is somehow, for example, it's a space to advocate in the region, but also just to advocate in regard to, for example, us. So I think if you have this kind of topics, for example, and you really bring it up, and I have something that I then can actually talk back to in organizations, I think this is also kind of a very good way. So for me, this advocacy is super important. And I also saw that topic, you made it big already in the Twitter timeline. So I'm absolutely open. I'm totally convinced of the topic. So I think just have to strengthen it in many regards, in many directions. So yeah, thanks for that. Bring it up. And if we actually also make it a big also topic of women at web, for example, as you said, for example, to say, hey, why can't that be part of a curriculum or of our curriculum, especially for female journalists? We could also maybe think it through and implement it more in the already existing project.
Great, thanks for that. Yes, it would be good to see a more dedicated effort for the narration and representation of women by the media. As a journalist rather, digital rights of women or digital rights as a standalone is not something that was taught, and it's not something that is happening still to this day. Nonetheless, it is a monster of a field. And as we go into winding up, I'd just like to talk about why we as CPESA see this and such relationships and collaborations as valuable, because in our community, which we call the Internet Freedom Africa community, we are keen on seeing more digital inclusion across the continent. And this is for women, for youth, for persons with disabilities, for the elderly. And that inclusion will take on many different forms. It may be by basic SMS, which some people are still trying to get basic access to due to lack of infrastructure, lack of devices, and so much more. So this is one of the many conversations that we are having. We've also been exploring the issue of anonymity. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We have seen instances where women have been vocal only when they're anonymous. But we've also been seeing cases of anonymous accounts targeting women. So what happens with the case for anonymity? How good is a good thing, or how bad is a bad thing? How bad is a good thing, rather? We're also looking at issues of surveillance. What does it mean for women? What does it mean for society, for civic engagement? We've been looking at issues around data collection. We saw that even at the level of data collection, women are more willing to part with their information than men, who are more likely to ask, why are you taking my information? Where is it going? How will it be used? So that brings us to the argument around data literacy. How data literate are women than their male counterparts? Of course, often it's a representation of what we see in the offline world, where the gender disparity plays itself off, as well, with more men being educated or more aware of the digital aspects than women are. We also look at issues around the LGBTQI community in African countries. What does that mean? We also found that this community happens to be amongst the more digitally savvy, digitally secure communities that we've happened to work with. We ask ourselves why. And in many instances, we see it's because of the repeated assaults that they keep facing in that community, which has forced a sense of digital literacy to shoot up much higher than we've seen for other communities. But nonetheless, this is one of many conversations that we are having. And in winding up, I'd like to just ask all of us in the room, we're not that many, to just share a few words on what we wish the future of the internet would look like for women in Africa. And on that note, I'd like to start with Evelyn. Evelyn, what is your vision for the future of women in Africa online?
I hope to see, hi everyone, I've been a little bit quiet, but following the discussion. So what I would like to see is an internet where women are actually free to voice their, their words, their opinions. That's what we've been talking about all this while. Most times we find that whenever people come out to speak out, then they are silenced. That's why, as Julie says, some of them end up being more vocal when they are anonymous, but we do not want such a situation. We want a situation where women are free to speak, when they are known as they are, who they are. So we are hoping for freedom. I'm hoping for freedom on the internet for every woman. Thank you.
Awesome. So Evelyn is hoping for more freedom on the internet for women. I'd like to ask Frank. Frank was one of the journalists who participated in the Media Masterclass. Frank, what is your vision for the future of women in the online space? Sorry for putting you on the spot, but welcome to the room. If we don't get a response from Frank, then we'll jump straight on and to Johanna. Johanna, what is your vision for the future of women on the internet?
Me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so I think from my perspective, we are facing now the region. It's these 4 countries, and I think there are some also differences from country to country, but I think there's also this connecting idea that actually women should be more safe in the internet, and that they are not afraid to be confronted with different form of online violence. And this is actually something that's for me a holistic idea. Because I think I've just recently read an article about women also in the Arabic region. They are also confronted with very different forms of online violence. Maybe the topics are somehow different, but the fact that this is happening, it's the same. Here in Germany also, female politicians are attacked tremendously by perpetrators in the internet. So for me, this is really like, this is a global problem. This is a global topic. And for me, it's to really say women have the right. Women have the right to be online. Women have the right to express their opinions freely without being afraid. And actually, yeah, and it needs to be, actually, we need effort from many sides and perspectives. Actually, there need to be also, I mean, the laws are somehow already there, as I have also learned, but they need to be implemented. Police need to be sensitized in regard to this topic. They also have to be on the boat, also if women actually try to search for help. What I also learned was also kind of very good approach is actually to support each other, especially also women, to form groups like peer-to-peer groups, also for them to have the chance to realize that they are not alone, that they can share, that actually maybe if we don't create these safe spaces online, maybe we can at least create safe spaces offline and then transfer them in the online space. So, and then actually, yes, and that what you are doing, I think is very crucial. So bring the topic out there and make it known. Because if the topic is not known, nobody will react to it, nobody will think about it, and nobody actually really cares about it. So I think that this is now the best what we can do. And I hope that this will actually change the way how people perceive it. Yeah, so let's hope for the best.
A very big vision there, glad to hear that. We'll move on to Lindsay. Lindsay, what is your vision for the future of internet in Africa and women? Okay, we're having issues with Lindsay. Louis Gitinwa from Rwanda. Are you willing and able to share your vision for women on the internet? Louis, you're welcome to introduce yourself first and then go straight to the question.
Thank you, Juliet. How are you? And good morning, everyone. My name is Louis Gitinwa, as you mentioned, Juliet. And I'm a lawyer based here in Kigali, Rwanda. I would like to try to trust on your view, this ideal view of a safe and free internet in Africa. But I'm quite sad to say it, but I would like to disagree with you a bit, because looking on the context now and the context of my own country here in Rwanda and around the region in East Africa, I'm quite worried about the future, because you really raise a very important issue about anonymity and surveillance, digital surveillance. And just here in my hometown, you have around all the major neighborhood and roundabout, you have digital camera around. And the government, despite the fact that we are a quite poor country, but we are investing in buying very high-tech digital to tap on people conversation, to survey citizen. And it's quite very, very concerning and very, very alarming to see that. I would like to view myself in Africa in the internet, which is very safe, safe from digital surveillance, safe from harassment. But I think we have a lot of work to do, and I'm just take this opportunity also to laud the work CPESA is doing, and my sister Natasha at Women at Web Rwanda. But I want just to be realistic that there is still a lot of job to do. We need to push back against all this. This cyber surveillance, this mass online surveillance technologies, which are, are acquired by our government just to spying on public dissent and on the citizen. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we are living in an age of increased cyber surveillance, increased data collection. But despite all of that, not enough women are online, not enough women are able to push back or to, talk out against these things, which is why it's fundamental to have these conversations. The future of all these, the introduction of all these technologies is yet to be seen. We've seen it playing out and it's not too good. But nonetheless, we need more people advocating against these shifts in the use and collection of people's personal data and information. And on that note, I'd like to invite Tiakisi, who is also collecting information aimed at changing the perceptions of African girls and women in the world today. So on that note, I'd like to invite Tiakisi to share a bit of what her vision is for the future of the internet in Africa and women, and to tell us where we can go to share our stories about what we're doing or what should be done to promote more women in the online space. Tiakisi?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to join you finally. I've been trying to see if I could find a time to come and join you all week, and it's just been really hard. I think we're about 3 hours difference. I'm in Newcastle, the United Kingdom, and when I woke up, I was like, oh my God, it's on today. So yeah, I should come and join her. Yeah, my name is Salha Kaitesi, and I created Tikisi, a platform that is on a mission to challenge and change the perception of African girls and women in the world. Even though we are based in Newcastle, UK, we have contributors from around the globe. Some of them, Natasha is one of them, and others are from, a majority of the African countries. We would love to see maybe North Africa join us as well, which would be really, really important, because then we'll be able to collect as many stories and narratives from their side of Africa as well. My mission has never changed. It has always been to give African women a platform to voice their opinions, to not be afraid to say whatever they want to say. The thing that you're doing now, I was just like, yeah, that's what I've been campaigning for all this time. But it's good to see that there's actually other organizations as well doing the same in a different way, but all of us coming up, you know, kind of like have an end game, which is exactly the same. I would like to invite the organizations, please spread the word. Our platform is there to change the narrative. And for those women I know who are afraid to probably share their stories, as we say, because they do not want to be confronted after whatever they've said, we have an anonymous way of actually doing this. There's pseudonyms that can be used, but at least we're still able to collect as many voices as we can. And thank you so much for what you're doing. I wish I had joined you earlier, and hopefully we'll connect another time. Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Please do share in the chat box where people can get hold of you. It would be great to see what collaborations or what relationships can be forged here on. We have an amazing group of people in the room, many of whom are writers, many of whom have got a story to tell. So by all means, people, let's do this. Moving on, Miriam in Kenya, what's your vision for the future of internet and African women online?
Yes. So I envision a space where women can express themselves freely, unbiased, you know, without being harassed. I think everyone has echoed the same sentiments, and I think it's important to involve many more collaborate with more people in different sectors. It may mean we need a lot of political goodwill sometimes to keep pushing for the implementation of these laws and policies that are safeguarding women's spaces online. This campaign is very important, and it's something we should continue on and keep pushing for. So, yeah.
Thanks, Miriam. Lourdes, are you there? What's your vision for the future of internet and women in Africa? If we can't get through to Lourdes, let's go straight on to Moira, sorry.
Yes, I envision a future internet that's inclusive and diverse of all women, that is free to access, so that we have all marginalized groups that can't connect to the internet now join, that is safe, and that where women and marginalized groups can meaningfully contribute and participate in the growth of that ecosystem that's the internet.
Thank you for that. Straight to the point. Natasha from Rwanda, what's your vision for the future of internet in Africa and women?
Well, my vision is the same as what most people have said, is basically for women to be online as much as men, to have food rights online, not just women, but also the LGBTQ community, to fully express themselves without any repercussions, to fully be safe and not be objectified. Yeah. It's as brief
Thanks
as
for that.
Everyone else has mentioned what I had in mind.
Yes, so no, one thing is clear, that the vision is the same for everyone. Frank was not able to share earlier, but he sent through a message, and he would like to see open spaces where freedoms and rights of all can be respected and observed. Lindsay, we have you. Please go ahead.
Yay! Finally, yeah. I would like to see an erasure of the cultural programming of how girls are raised. Girls are not raised to be CEOs, they are raised to be receptionists. And you can see that in how they behave online. Polite, they seek validation, they apologize for having an opinion. You know, they do not have any real power. And even if a woman is a CEO, there's a misconception that having money makes a woman empowered. It doesn't, because there are lots of CEOs who are being beaten up, who are in abusive relationships. And we saw what happened to an empowered member of parliament who could not shake off a 21-year-old kid. So we need to erase the cultural programming, because that's the only way that this is going to spill online. And I would like to also see women having more initiative. There is too much apathy. It's inexcusable, the apathy that women have when it comes to expressing themselves. They either do not see the importance of it, or they don't want to. A perfect example of apathy is when I held a digital security training for this campaign, and I asked people to apply to be a part of the training, and they come for the training and they all come without laptops. And I asked, do you own laptops? Yeah, they're at home. There's just a general lack of monitoring of their online and offline ecosystem, a general carelessness. So I'd like to see more initiative, a reduced apathy or no apathy at all. I'd like to see women being more unapologetic, but that cannot happen without the erasure of the cultural programming of how girls are raised.
Thank you for that. Yes, the language of upbringing is definitely playing itself out on the internet, and very strongly so. We're seeing that also during COVID times, where I was listening to someone and their conversation was going along the lines that it was the son who had more access to the tablet for his homework than the daughter did. They're both supposed to be in school, they're both trying to do their work online. So yeah, this starts from home. It starts with the language that we use. I'd like to move on to Brian. Brian has been a co-host. Brian, what's your vision for the future of internet and women in Africa?
Thank you, Juliet. So I think I won't re-echo what most of all of us have said here, that I would love to see a more inclusive, safer, secure internet. Unfortunately, like something you mentioned, the way the nature of the internet, the whole anonymity, some of the the possibilities on the internet might not allow us to achieve what we intend to do. But also, I feel that we have a lot of work that we have to do offline, because the way the internet is a reflection of the cultures or offline. So if we can, it's going to be a tough job, but we need to change the narrative. We need to change somehow change the views. We need to change people's perceptions of women offline, and that will be able to that will translate online. So we have to do a lot of work offline to be able to achieve our goal of a more inclusive, safe, respectable internet in the future. That is my take.
Great, thank you. Lourdes also sent through a message. The vision there is for an internet where women feel comfortable and enjoy the freedom to express themselves without judgment, harm, threats, and stigma. Sends apologies for not being able to talk. So yes, everybody, we are on the same page with the vision for internet in Africa. I'd just like to add my thoughts before we wind up. I'd like to see an internet in Africa that is firstly affordable for more women. And in creating more affordable internet, we can get more stories, more content from women in Africa, which are sorely missing and invisible on the internet. And there's a richness and diversity there in terms of content and information that should be online. So, when we think further ahead, when more women come online, what content are they going to find? Whose narratives are they going to find? Whose narrative is going to shape their online experience? So now more than ever, we need to be working towards more affordable internet. And alongside that, creating a safer space, one that is more welcoming for women, one that is more welcoming for all users of the internet, and is safe for one to have an opinion, express an opinion, and to also have a divergent opinion, which is just as well. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much to all of you amazing people who took the time out to join us at very short notice to just have a quick conversation on safe spaces in East Africa and beyond. It's been a pleasure sharing this space with you all. And I hope we can continue the conversation online. Remember this hashtag we've been using, it's Safe Spaces EA. But I'd also welcome you to join us on the Internet Freedom Africa website, which is where we try to group together the different facets of digital rights that are shaping the internet, the African internet experience in terms of access, perception, use, and much more. So unless there's anything anybody else would like to say, I'd like to bring this meeting to a close at exactly 1:01. Thank you very much, everybody. I look forward to seeing you online though. And remember, we've received an invitation from Tiakisi to provide content. By all means, anytime anybody opens the door for content, to jump through that door. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for organizing this. Bye.
Thank you all.